Sumit Singh's arrest shocked everyone. Jenny Slatten's husband, known from 90-Day Fiancé, the other way, was caught in a hidden life no one expected. For fans, their romance once looked like a modern fairy tale. But behind the cameras, a much darker truth unfolded. Sumit had fallen into gambling. It started small, with online poker and betting games. But soon it turned into an addiction he couldn't control. What began as a distraction from his family's rejection of Jenny turned into late nights glued to screens, chasing wins that never lasted. Each one gave him hope, but every loss pushed him to bet more. Over time, he racked up nearly $280,000 in debt. He borrowed from online lenders, maxed out credit cards, and took high-interest loans. Collection calls and threats poured in. He began to pressure Jenny, asking her to help him pay off the debt, keeping the full truth from her for as long as possible. Jenny had no idea what was happening at first. She noticed small things, missed bills, excuses about money, his sudden mood swings. Some days he seemed euphoric, other nights restless and cold. When she asked, he brushed it off as stress. Jenny wanted to believe him. She had left her home, her family, and her comfortable life in California to be with him in India. To question him felt like questioning her own choices. So she trusted him, even when signs were everywhere. The relationship had always been filled with obstacles. Jenny and Sumit's age gap shocked his conservative family. They saw Jenny, old enough to be his mother, as a source of shame. His parents rejected her, and the pressure weighed heavily on both of them. Jenny wanted acceptance, but it never came. Every visit ended with coldness and dismissal. She was heartbroken, while Sumit was torn between love for Jenny and the need for his parents' approval. That tension created constant fights, and the love that once felt unshakable began to weaken. Still, Jenny fought for their marriage. On TV, they were the couple who stood strong against tradition and doubt. Fans admired Jenny's courage to cross the world for love. To her, love was worth the sacrifice. But what she didn't see was the hidden addiction slowly tearing everything apart. The truth came out when the debt spiraled out of control. Sumit could no longer hide the unpaid loans and the threats from creditors. Jenny learned the full scale of the problem, $280,000. She was shocked and devastated. Not only had he lied, but he had dragged her into the storm. Under mounting pressure, Sumit was sued, and when he failed to repay the money, he was arrested. The court sentenced him to 1 year in prison. For Jenny, it was unbearable. She had given everything for this marriage. She endured family rejection, financial struggles, and emotional betrayal, only to discover the man she trusted had been living a double life. The pressure and heartbreak became too much. Eventually, Jenny had no choice but to divorce him. After the divorce, Jenny was determined to rebuild her life. She didn't want to be defined by betrayal or heartbreak. Later, she married a man named Zach, choosing stability and peace over the chaos of her past. For Jenny, it was a chance to start fresh, to finally find happiness after years of struggle. This story is more than just reality TV drama. It is a warning about secrets, betrayal, and the cost of blind trust. Jenny and Sumit's romance looked perfect from the outside. It was built on dreams of love conquering all, age, distance, family disapproval. But behind the smiles, there were cracks from the very beginning. His family's rejection, the endless fights, the unexplained money issues. All were signs of deeper problems. Jenny, like many people in love, chose to ignore them. She believed her sacrifice and loyalty would be enough. But no amount of love can fix a relationship built on lies. Sumit's addiction was a storm Jenny never saw coming. Gambling is seductive. It offers hope, distraction, and the thrill of risk. But it destroys quietly, piece by piece, until the damage is too large to hide. For Sumit, gambling was a way to escape judgment, stress, and loneliness. But it came at the cost of his marriage and freedom. Jenny's story is painful, but it also shows resilience. She survived humiliation, betrayal, and heartbreak. She walked away, rebuilt her life, and chose to move forward. In the end, her courage wasn't in staying, but in leaving. Their relationship began like a dream. An American woman ready to give everything for love, and a young Indian man promising her the world. Viewers rooted for them. But behind the fairy tale, there was always another story, one of addiction, lies, and broken trust. Jenny and Sumit's journey reminds us that reality TV shows only a fraction of real life. The cameras capture romance, drama, and emotions, but they can't show the whole truth. The real story happens behind closed doors, in late-night arguments, in secrets kept, in debts hidden. What started as a love story ended as a cautionary tale. Jenny believed love was worth every sacrifice. But in the end, she discovered that no sacrifice can save a marriage poisoned by lies and addiction. Her story is one of heartbreak, survival, and eventually new beginnings. Sumit couldn't stop gambling, no matter how hard he tried. Jenny began to see the changes more clearly. He grew nervous whenever the phone rang, rushing to pick it up before she could see who was calling. His hands shook when he logged into his laptop late at night. Money began disappearing from their shared account. When Jenny asked questions, Sumit grew defensive. "Why are you always doubting me? Don't you trust me?" he snapped, shifting the blame onto her. Jenny, hurt but still desperate to hold on to the man she loved, would back down. "Of course I trust you, Sumit. I left everything for you." But deep down, she knew something was terribly wrong. His addiction wasn't only about money. It had taken over his emotions. His moods shifted with every bet. When he won, he was happy and affectionate. When he lost, he was cold, irritable, and sometimes cruel. Jenny began to feel as if she was living with two different men. One was the man who promised her the world, and the other was a stranger drowning in a dark obsession. But addiction never stays hidden forever. Secrets always rise to the surface. One evening, Jenny stumbled across something she was never meant to see. While using Sumit's laptop, she found a string of emails. They weren't from family or friends, but from lenders, debt collectors, and gambling platforms. The subject lines froze her heart. Final notice. Immediate payment required. Account overdue. Her hands trembled as she scrolled, each message revealing thousands of dollars owed. With every line, her heart sank. The man she thought she knew, the man she had given up her life for, had been hiding a devastating truth. When she confronted Sumit, his face went pale. At first, he denied everything. Then he blamed stress and claimed gambling was just a way to cope. But as Jenny pressed him, the truth came spilling out. The staggering losses, the loans, and the crushing reality. $280,000 in debt. Jenny felt the room spin around her. Every sacrifice she had made for him suddenly seemed meaningless. Love had carried her across the world, but lies had left her stranded in a nightmare. The confession didn't end there. Sumit begged her for help. He pleaded with Jenny to stand by him, to use her money to help pay off the debt. He promised they could get through it together. But for Jenny, it wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about trust, and trust once broken is almost impossible to repair. What she didn't know was that this secret wasn't just going to break her heart. It was about to pull both of them into a legal disaster. At first, Jenny tried to hold on. When Sumit cried and confessed, she told herself that love was about forgiveness. She thought maybe this was a mistake, something they could work through. But Sumit wasn't changing. Instead of pulling back from gambling, he doubled down. He convinced himself the only way to escape his debt was to gamble his way out. One big win, he told himself, and everything will be fine. But that big win never came. Each loss only buried him deeper. Online lenders charged enormous interest rates. Collection calls became constant. Some creditors even threatened legal action. Jenny, retired and living on limited savings, suddenly found herself in the middle of financial chaos she had never imagined. Every dollar mattered. Grocery trips became stressful. Bills piled up. Nights once filled with laughter turned into long stretches of silence and fear. Sumit kept pressuring her. He begged her to use her retirement money, insisting she was his only hope. At first, Jenny resisted. "I can't do this, Sumit. I don't have that kind of money. I came here for love, not to pay for your mistakes." But he pushed harder. His pleas turned into guilt. "Didn't you say you'd stand by me no matter what? Didn't you leave your whole life behind for me? Prove it. Help me." Jenny felt trapped. She had sacrificed so much already. Now the man she trusted was demanding the rest of her future. Meanwhile, creditors closed in. Some sent letters, others knocked on their door. Jenny began to fear the phone, the mailbox, even unexpected knocks. Whispers spread among neighbors, and her humiliation grew. The breaking point came when Jenny discovered that Sumit had pawned some of her belongings. Jewelry, electronics, even sentimental items were gone. When she confronted him, he was cold. I had no choice. It was either that or let them come after me harder. Her heart broke again. This wasn't just debt anymore. It was betrayal she could see with her own eyes. The interest piled higher until repayment was impossible. What started as gambling losses had turned into a legal nightmare. Lawyers became involved, and soon creditors filed formal complaints. Jenny lay awake at night, staring at the ceiling, asking herself over and over, how did I end up here? She had crossed oceans for love. She had fought for a marriage no one believed in. And now she was watching it collapse under the weight of lies and debt. The debt wasn't just financial anymore. It was emotional, mental, and spiritual. It consumed every part of her life. With each passing day, she realized she might not be able to save Sumit or their marriage. But the creditors didn't care about love or heartbreak. They wanted money. And when no repayment came, they filed a lawsuit against Sumit Singh. Their story was no longer just about a marriage falling apart. It became a courtroom drama. Debt is not just numbers. It is weight, a shadow, a constant whisper that follows you day and night. For Jenny, that whisper had become a scream. The truth was undeniable now. Sumit had lost nearly $280,000 to online gambling. Lawsuits loomed, creditors stalked them, and the quiet life Jenny had dreamed of in India was gone. But Sumit wasn't just drowning. He was dragging Jenny down with him. His words were full of desperation. Jenny, please, you're all I have. If you don't help me, I'll lose everything. Jenny's heart ached, but she stood firm. Sumit, I can't. I gave up my life in America for you. My savings aren't endless. Still, he pressed harder. You have a pension. You have savings. Just help me a little. I'll pay it back, I swear. Jenny shook her head. She had already given more than she could. And still the debt grew. His pleas turned into accusations. So, all those times you said you loved me, they were lies? You won't even help me when I need you most? After everything I've done for you? Jenny trembled. She had fought his family, endured ridicule, and stood by him when no one else would. And now he treated her as the villain. The pressure was relentless. Every morning started with questions about money. Every night ended with arguments. Jenny no longer felt like a wife. She felt like a hostage. Worst of all, she began to fear what Sumit might do. His mood swung wildly. Sometimes he paced the apartment, muttering in panic. Other times he sat cold and silent, lost in darkness. Jenny feared not only for his safety, but for her own. The creditors added to the nightmare. Phone calls became relentless. Some were polite, but firm, demanding repayment. Others were threatening, their voices sharp and intimidating. Jenny often froze when the phone rang, her stomach twisting into knots. Neighbors began to whisper. People in their building had noticed the visits from debt collectors, the arguments that spilled into the hallways, the late-night shouting. Matches. Jenny, once proud of the love she had defended on television, now felt humiliated and ashamed. There was no peace left. Sumit's demands reached a breaking point one evening when he stood over Jenny, his voice shaking with anger. If you don't help me, Jenny, they'll ruin me. Do you understand? They'll take everything and it'll be on. You're my wife. You're supposed to help me. Jenny, her eyes filled with tears, whispered the only truth she had left. I can't save you, Sumit. Not from this. Not from yourself. The words hung heavy in the air. For the first time, Jenny allowed herself to see what was happening. This wasn't just about debt. This was about control. This was about a man who had gambled away not just money, but trust, love, and the very foundation of their marriage. Still, the pressure never stopped. Each day brought new demands, new fights, new heartbreak. And, slowly, Jenny realized something she had never wanted to admit. Love alone was not enough anymore. The woman who had left everything behind for love was now being asked to give up the last thing she had, her dignity, her safety, and her sanity. Jenny's heart was breaking, and soon so would their marriage, because the more precious Sumit placed on her, the more certain she became that their love story was over. The truth always has a way of surfacing. You can bury it under lies, cover it with excuses, or distract with empty promises, but eventually it rises. And for Jenny Slatten, the truth about Sumit Singh's double life came crashing down in a way she could no longer ignore. For weeks, Jenny had lived under suffocating pressure. The constant begging, the relentless phone calls, the late night arguments that left her in tears. She had given Sumit the benefit of the doubt more times than she could count. She'd had told herself he was stressed, that maybe he exaggerated the numbers, that perhaps things weren't as dire as they seemed. But the truth was far worse than she ever imagined. It began with an envelope, a thick official-looking packet that arrived by courier one humid afternoon. Jenny's name wasn't on it, but the address matched theirs. With trembling hands, she placed it on the table, waiting for Sumi to come home. But curiosity and fear gnawed at her. She opened it. Inside were documents, stamped and signed, detailing Najwit's filed against Sumit Singh. The numbers leaped off the page. $280,000. In outstanding debt with multiple creditors demanding immediate repayment. Interest charges, legal fees, threats of asset seizures, and the most chilling line of all, a notice of pending court action. Jenny's heart sank. The excuses he had fed her, the small losses, the temporary setbacks were lies. Every word he had spoken was carefully crafted to hide the scale of his destruction. By the time Sumit walked through the door that evening, Jenny was waiting. The paper spread across the table like evidence in a courtroom. Explain this, she demanded, her voice shaking with anger. Sumit froze, his face drained of color. For a moment, he tried to deny it, reaching for excuses. These aren't what you think. They're just misunderstandings, paperwork errors. But Jenny cut him off. Stop lying to me. $280,000, Sumit. You told me it wasn't that bad. You told me you had it under control. Do you even know what you've done? The apartment fell silent, the weight of her words pressing down on them both. Sumit sank into a chair, his head in his hands. For the first time, the bravado was gone. The charm, the excuses, the guilt tripping, all of it collapsed under the mountain of truth. I didn't mean for it to get this far, he whispered. I thought I could fix it. I thought I could win it back. Jenny's eyes filled with tears, but not of sympathy. These were tears of betrayal. You didn't just lose money, Sumit. You lost me. You lost everything we built. The confrontation opened a floodgate. Jenny began connecting the dots. The porn belongings, the strange visitors, the endless nights glued to his laptop. Every odd behavior suddenly made sense. The man she had defended to the world, the man she had believed in when no one else did, had been hiding a secret that threatened not only their marriage, but her very sanity. That night, Jenny barely slept. She replayed every moment of their relationship, every sacrifice she had made. She remembered the ridicule she endured from strangers online, the scorn from Sumit's family, the whispers from neighbors. Through it all, she had stood tall, believing that love would be enough. But love cannot survive lies this big. The next morning, she made a choice. For the first time, Jenny began to think not about saving Sumit, but about saving herself. The days that followed were a blur of legal letters, angry phone calls, and painful silences. Sumit, broken and cornered, oscillated between begging for forgiveness and lashing out in frustration. Jenny, drained and heartbroken, grew colder. Her trust was gone, and with it, her hope for the future. The truth was no longer something hidden. It was printed in black and white, sealed in legal documents, stamped by the courts, and soon it would no longer just be a private chain. It would become public, because lawsuits don't stay in envelopes forever. They lead to hearings, to police involvement to headlines. And, for Jenny and Sumit, the world was about to watch their downfall unfold. The day the lawsuit arrived, everything changed. Until then, the dead had lived in the shadows, hidden behind Sumit's lies, buried under excuses, whispered in late night arguments. But now it was stamped with official seals signed by lawyers and delivered by the courts. For Jenny, it was the moment her worst fears were confirmed. This wasn't just a private problem anymore. This was the law. This was real. The lawsuit was brutal in its detail. Page after page outlined the loans Sumit had taken, the interest that had ballooned, the gambling platforms where his money had vanished. Each document was like a knife twisting deeper into Jenny's chest. It wasn't just $280,000 in debt. It was $280,000 of betrayals stacked neatly in legal terms. Neighbors began whispering as word spread. Men in suits showed up at the apartment, knocking on their door, with documents in hand. The building staff looked at Jenny differently now, no longer with the warm curiosity of foreigners, but with the cold judgment reserved for scandal. Jenny, once proud of her love story, now felt humiliated. Every time she left the apartment, she wondered who knew, who was talking, who was secretly pointing fingers. But the worst part was how Sumit reacted. Instead of stepping up, instead of taking responsibility, he collapsed deeper into denial. He insisted the lawsuit was exaggerated, that lawyers were just trying to scare him. He clung to the hope that somehow it would all go away. Jenny knew better. She attended the first court hearing with him, sitting quietly as lawyers rattled off numbers that made her head spin. The judge's stern face made it clear this was no small matter. The creditors wanted their money, and they weren't going to stop until they got it. Jenny sat stiffly in the courtroom, her heart pounding as Sumit's name was read aloud. Reporters scribbled in their notepads, cameras clicked outside, and she realized with horror that this wasn't just legal trouble. This was a spectacle. Their love story, once broadcast on reality TV as a fairy tale of perseverance, was now a headline for all the wrong reasons. 90-Day Fiancé. Star faces $280,000 gambling debt lawsuit. The headline would haunt her forever. At home, the pressure intensified. Sumit became frantic, lashing out one moment, collapsing in tears the next. He begged Jenny to help with legal fees, to dip further into her savings. Jenny refused. She was done being his safety net. "You brought this on yourself, Sumit," she told him firmly. "I won't let you drag me down with you." The words cut him, but they also set her free. Still, the court process dragged on. Each hearing pulled them deeper into a nightmare. Lawyers argued, creditors demanded repayment, and Sumit's gambling records were laid bare for all to see. Every secret, every lie, every reckless decision was exposed under the harsh light of the courtroom. Jenny sat through it all, her face stoic, her heart breaking. She had once believed love could conquer anything. Age, distance, family opposition, but it could not conquer addiction. It could not conquer lies, and now it could not conquer the law. The final blow came when the judge ruled that Sumit had indeed failed to repay his debts and had violated multiple financial agreements. The verdict was harsh but inevitable. Sumit Singh would face criminal charges for fraud and reckless borrowing.